I told her I didn't want to go to the party, said it twice while tying my shoes. It's work people, I said. They won't notice if I'm not there. She stood behind me and fixed my collar like I was a child. They'll notice, she said softly. And I want you there. I looked at her in the mirror. She smiled, but her eyes were tired. I kissed her cheek anyway. Fine, I said. But we leave early. She laughed. You always say that. I didn't laugh back. I felt something heavy sitting in my chest, and I didn't know why. The party was loud and bright, and I hated it the second we walked in. I stayed close to her. My hand never left her waist. Relax, she whispered. You look like security. I forced a smile. Someone has to protect you from bad music. She rolled her eyes and walked ahead to greet her coworkers. I followed, nodding at faces I didn't care about. Then the room shifted. I didn't see him at first. I felt him. The air tightened. Her laugh stopped mid-breath. I turned and saw the man standing near the door, calm, smiling like he belonged there. She froze. I watched her face drain of color. You okay? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it wasn't mine. She swallowed. I didn't know he'd be here, she said. I followed her stare. He walked toward us slowly, hands in his pockets, confident. Hey, he said to her, ignoring me. Long time? She nodded too quickly. Yeah, she whispered. Silence wrapped around us. I stuck out my hand. I'm her boyfriend. I said. He shook it. Firm grip, steady eyes. No, he replied. The way he said it felt like a challenge. We stood there pretending to be polite strangers. He talked about work. She nodded. I watched their eyes. He spoke more than their mouths did. Every glance was a memory I wasn't part of. I felt myself shrinking. Excuse me, I said finally. I need a drink. She grabbed my arm. Don't go, she whispered. I looked at her hand on me. Why? I asked. She hesitated. Just stay. He smiled slightly. I'm not stealing her, he said. My jaw tightened. I didn't say you were, I replied, but my heart screamed that he already had. I stood there and listened to them talk about places they used to go. Restaurants, trips, old jokes. Each word cut me open. I laughed when I was supposed to. I nodded like I understood. Inside I was burning. You still hate olives? He asked her. She laughed softly. Always will. I didn't know that about her. The realization hit me harder than I expected. I leaned closer. You never told me that, I whispered. Me like she'd been caught. It's not important, she said. He watched us, silent, patient, like a man waiting for a door to open. Later, I found her alone near the balcony. Talk to me, I said. She hugged herself. It's nothing, she insisted. I shook my head. Nothing doesn't look like that. She looked away. He's just history. I stepped closer. History doesn't shake you like this. Her voice cracked. I said it's fine. I felt anger rise, hot and sharp. Then look at me and say it, I demanded. She couldn't. That was my answer. I stepped back. I need air, I muttered. She didn't stop me this time. I walked the hallway trying to breathe. My phone buzzed. It was my best friend. How's the party? Texted. I typed, bad idea. He called immediately. What happened? He asked. I leaned against the wall. Her ex is here, he cursed. That's not good. I laughed bitterly. You think he was quiet for a second? Watch her, he said. Not him. Watch. Her. His words settled deep in my chest. I don't want to lose her, I admitted. He sighed. Then don't lose yourself first. I went back inside and couldn't find her. Panic climbed my throat. I searched room after room until I heard her voice behind a half-closed door. I stopped. I never stopped caring, she whispered. My blood turned cold. His voice answered, calm and smooth. I know. Silence followed. Then she spoke again. Being with him is safe. Being with you is real. I pressed my hand to the wall to stay upright. He laughed softly. You always wanted real. My chest ached like it was splitting. Open. I didn't wait to hear more. I walked out before my legs gave out. The night air hit me hard. I kept walking until the music disappeared. My phone rang again. Her name lit the screen. I let it ring. Then a message came. "Where did you go?" I stared at it. My hands shook. Typed, "Home." Another message. "We need to talk." I looked back at the building glowing behind me. I whispered no to nobody. For the first time all night, my mind felt clear. I called my friend. "I'm leaving," I said. He didn't ask where. Good," he replied. I sat on the curb and laughed through tears. "I thought loving her was enough," I said. He answered gently, "Love doesn't fix ghosts." I looked at my reflection in a dark window. I barely recognized myself. "I won't compete with her past," I whispered. The words felt final. Phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it. I stood up and started walking. Each step hurt, but it also felt like freedom. I chose distance over destruction. Chose to leave before I disappeared. I left before sunrise because I didn't trust myself to leave in daylight. The city looked softer in the dark, like it didn't want to fight me. I carried one bag and my phone, nothing else. When the taxi driver asked where I was going, I said, "Anywhere far?" He laughed. "That's not a place," he said. I stared out the window. "It is today," I replied. I didn't text her, I didn't call. Every second felt like tearing skin, slow and ugly. But I kept going because stopping felt worse. The bus station smelled like coffee and wet concrete. I bought the cheapest ticket on the board. The clerk slid it to me and asked, "Visiting family?" I shook my head. "Running," I said before I could stop myself. He looked confused. "Good luck," he muttered. I sat alone near the window. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Her name lit the screen again and again. I didn't open the messages. I turned the phone off and pressed it to my chest. "You chose this," I whispered to myself. The bus arrived, and I stepped on without looking back. The town was smaller than I expected. Quiet streets. Empty sidewalks. The air felt clean in a way that hurt my lungs. I dragged my bag to the first building with a sign that said rooms. A woman opened the door before I knocked. She looked at me like she'd seen. "1,000 men like me? You need a place?" she asked. I nodded. "Cheap," I added. She smiled gently. "Cheap is what I have." She handed me a key. "No questions," she said. I swallowed. "Thank you." Almost cried from the kindness. The room was tiny, but silent. I dropped my bag and sat on the bed. The silence roared at every breath. Reminded me of her. I stared at the wall and said her name out loud. It echoed back like a stranger. My phone stayed off. I kept it that way. I lay there until the sun moved across the window. Finally, I stood up and told the empty room, "You survive first. Feel later." The words sounded stupid, but they held me together. I found work at a small grocery store on the corner. The owner handed me an apron and said, "Stock shelves, don't steal, we're fine." I nodded. "I don't steal," I replied. He shrugged. "Everyone says that." An older worker watched me stack cans. "You knew?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He wiped his hands. "I'm not asking why you're here," he added quickly. I let out a breath. "Thank you," he smiled. "People come here to disappear. You're not special." Right. His honesty felt comforting. Nights were the hardest. I wrote letters I never sent. I filled pages with words I couldn't speak. I read them back and said, "You're weak," to myself. Then I folded them anyway. The pile grew on the table. I didn't throw them away. I needed proof that I still felt something. One night I turned my phone on. Hundreds of messages waited. I read the first one. "Please talk to me." I turned the phone off again and pressed it under my pillow like it could stop my heart from racing. The knock came 3 days later. I opened the door without thinking. She stood there, breathing hard, eyes red. "You ran," she said. I froze. "You found me," I answered. She pushed past me into the room. "You think I wouldn't?" she demanded. I shut the door slowly. "I hoped you wouldn't," I admitted. She laughed, but it broke halfway. "I chose you," she said. The words hung between us. I stared at her. You almost didn't, I replied. She stepped closer. I came all this way, she whispered. Distance doesn't erase what I heard. Tears filled her eyes. I was scared, she said. I felt anger rise. You're honest? I corrected. She grabbed my arm. I'm here now. I pulled away gently. That doesn't fix me. She looked around the room. This is where you're hiding, she asked. I laughed. This is where I'm breathing. She covered her mouth and cried. I don't want to lose you, she said through tears. I sat on the edge of the bed. You already did, I answered quietly. She shook her head. No, I'm still here. I looked at her, really looked. She looked smaller, human, not the woman I built in my head. Why follow me? I asked. She whispered, because you left. The simplicity hurt. I rubbed my face. I don't know how to forgive you, I said. She nodded. Just don't disappear. We sat in silence. Her breathing slowed. But mine didn't. Finally, she said, I'll stay. I looked. Up. You can't, I replied. She met my eyes. Watch me. I wanted to argue, but the fight drained out of me. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. You're ruining my escape, I murmured. She sat on the floor beside me. And stop running, she whispered. I closed my eyes. I didn't answer. I didn't forgive. I didn't push her out. I just listened to her breathing in the quiet room and realized survival was about to get harder, not easier. Living in the same town with her felt like sharing a wound that refused to close. We spoke because silence was worse. One morning, she sat across from me at the small table and said, We can't keep pretending this is normal. I stared at my coffee. Nothing about this is normal, I replied. She folded her hands. Then let's say it out loud. I nodded slowly. Fine, say it. Her voice shook. He didn't come back by accident. My chest tightened. Explain? I whispered. She swallowed. He wanted revenge. She said. I laughed bitterly. For what? She looked straight at me. For leaving him years ago? I felt the air leave my lungs. So he hunted you, I asked. She nodded. He staged meetings. I made it look random. I pressed my palms. Together. And you walked into it. Tears filled her eyes. I felt guilty, she admitted. I stood up. Guilt isn't love, I said sharply. She whispered, I know that now. I paced the room. You almost chose him, I said. The words tasted like poison. She flinched. I almost lost myself, she corrected. I stopped walking. That almost killed me, I told her. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. Her honesty disarmed me. I sat down again. Why tell me now? Asked. She answered, because lies already broke us once. I stared at her trembling hands. Truth might finish the job, I murmured. She met my eyes. Save it. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen and felt my stomach drop. His name flashed like a warning. I answered before fear could stop me. What do you want? I demanded. He laughed softly. I'm in town, he said. I closed my eyes. Of course you are. He added, we should talk. I replied, we already are, he chuckled. Face to face. I hung up without. Answering, she whispered, he's here? I nodded. Her shoulders collapsed. I'm tired, she said. I whispered back, so am I. We met him near the bus stop because I refused to let him inside my room. He leaned against a pole like he owned the street. You look thinner, he said to me. I smirked. You look desperate. He laughed, still defensive. She stepped between us. Stop, she said. He looked at her. You came back to him, he murmured. She replied, I never left. Him? He turned to me. You think you won? He asked. I shrugged. There's nothing to win. He smiled slowly. Afraid she replace you, he said. The words hit hard because they were true. I forced my voice steady. I'm afraid of wasting time, I answered. He tilted his head. You're built on fear, he continued. I stepped closer. And you're built on revenge, I said quietly. His smile twitched. I wanted balance, he insisted. I laughed. You wanted control? Silence fell. He looked away first. She spoke then, voice clear. I'm done being your guilt. Project, she told him. He stared at her. You owe me, he whispered. She shook her head. I owed you honesty. I gave it years ago. He clenched his jaw. You broke me, he said. She replied, you chose to stay broken. I felt something shift inside me. His power drained the moment she stopped apologizing. He looked smaller. You'll regret this, he muttered. I answered calmly, you already do. He stepped back. You're nothing. He spat at me. I shrugged. Then leave me alone. He looked at her one last time. She didn't move. That silence humiliated him more than any insult. He turned and walked away without another word. I watched until he disappeared. My chest felt empty. I expected victory. Instead, I felt tired. She touched my arm. It's over, she whispered. I nodded. It should feel bigger, I said. She asked softly, why doesn't it? I sat on the curb and laughed weakly, because he wasn't the real problem, I admitted. She knelt beside me. Then what was? I looked at her. My fear. Of being replaceable, I said. The truth burned, but it was clean. She held my hand. You're not, she whispered. Shook my head. Everyone is, I replied. She squeezed tighter. Not to me. I studied her face. For once I believed she meant it. My phone rang again. It was my best friend, I answered. You alive, he asked. I smiled faintly. Barely, I said. He laughed. That's progress, I told him. I faced him. He whistled. And I replied, I survived, he said quietly. That's enough. I felt tears rise, but didn't fight them. I'm tired of fighting ghosts, I confessed, he answered. Then stop inviting them in. At her beside me. I'm trying, I said. When I hung up, she was watching me carefully. Do you hate me? She asked. The question cut deep. I shook my head. I hate what happened, I said. She nodded slowly. It's fair. We sat there while the town moved around us. Finally, she whispered, Can you ever forgive me? I didn't answer right away. I stared at my hands at the lion's eye. Didn't recognize. My voice came out low. I don't know, I admitted. She closed her eyes, but stayed beside me anyway. Silence settled, heavy but honest. For the first time, I didn't run from it. Forgiveness sounded simple when people talked about it, but living inside it felt like walking on broken glass. She didn't ask again after that day. She stayed in town quietly. We started talking in small pieces, like strangers testing a bridge. One morning, she handed me coffee and said, You don't have to answer yet. I looked at the cup. I know, I replied. She nodded. I'm not waiting for a verdict. I met her eyes. Then what are you waiting for? She smiled. Sadly, a chance to show you I'm different. Days passed without drama. That scared me more than chaos. I told her silence used to mean something was wrong. She sat beside me. Now it means we're breathing, she answered. I studied her face. She wasn't begging anymore. She listened when I spoke. When I said I feel tired, she didn't defend herself. She said, Rest then. That simple answer hit harder than any apology. I realized I didn't want her words. I wanted her patience. She was giving it. Without asking for praise, one evening I said, I didn't leave to punish you. She looked up quickly. I know, she whispered. I shook my head. No, you need to hear it. I touched my chest. I left to save this. She placed her hand over mine. I'm glad you did, she said. I frowned. Should be. Angry. She smiled softly. I was. Then I understood. I asked quietly. Understood what? She answered, loving you meant letting you go if you needed it. My throat tightened. I didn't expect grace. Barely understood it. We walked through town that night without speaking much. Finally, I said, I'm scared of becoming that man again. She squeezed my hand. Which man? I laughed bitterly. The one who disappears inside someone else. She stopped walking. I don't want that man either, she said firmly. I searched her face. Then we agree on something. She nodded. We agree on everything that matters. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a trap. Felt like a question I could answer slowly. My best friend called and asked, "Are you still running?" I smiled. "No," I said, "I'm standing still." He laughed. "That's progress," I told him. "I'm choosing now." He grew quiet. "That's dangerous," he warned gently. I replied, "So is hiding. Just don't lose yourself." I looked at her across the room. "I already found him," I said. When I hung up, she asked, "What did he say?" Smiled faintly. "He said I sound alive," she whispered. "You do?" The next morning, I sat across from her and said, "I won't go back to who I was." She didn't flinch. "Good," she answered. I added, "If we move forward, it's as equals." She nodded immediately. "Yes." I searched for hesitation and found none. "No fear," I said. She repeated, "No fear." I finished softly, "No guilt." She reached for my hand. "No guilt," she agreed. The words felt like a contract written in air. Nothing dramatic. Nothing loud. Just two people choosing clarity over comfort. I asked her, "Why stay after everything?" "Because you stayed inside me even when you left." I looked away, overwhelmed. "That's unfair," I muttered. She laughed softly. "Love is unfair." I shook my head. "I don't want love that traps me," she replied. "Then we build love that frees us." Her confidence scared me. It also steadied me. I realized forgiveness wasn't a gift I handed her. It was a door I opened for myself. Walking through it felt terrifying and clean at the same time. We packed lightly. No speeches. No promises written in stone. At the bus station, I said, "This feels familiar." She squeezed my fingers. "Last time you ran," she whispered. I nodded. "This time I'm choosing." She smiled. That's the difference." We boarded and sat near the window. The engine hummed beneath us. I looked at her and said, "I'm still afraid." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Me too," she admitted. I laughed quietly. "Good. That means we're honest." The bus started moving. The town faded behind us. I didn't feel chased. I didn't feel trapped. I felt present. I told her I don't know where we're going. She answered, "We're going together." I closed my eyes and let the motion carry me. For once, distance didn't mean escape. It meant direction. I held her hand without gripping it too tight. She didn't pull away. We breathed in the same rhythm. No ghosts, no competition, just choice. I whispered, "I forgive you." The words surprised me with how calm they sounded. She didn't cry. She didn't celebrate. She simply whispered back, "Thank you." That quiet acceptance proved everything had changed. Forgiveness didn't explode. It settled. I realized I wasn't the man who ran from pain anymore. I was the man who walked through it and kept moving. I looked out the window and smiled. "I'm not running," I told her. "I know," she said. I repeated it softly, mostly for myself. "I'm not running." The road stretched ahead, endless and open. The first time in a long time. The future didn't scare me. It invited me. And I answered by staying exactly where I was sitting. Beside her, moving forward on purpose. I wasn't escaping my life. I was choosing it.